As promised the first time when we unveiled our new 2.0 shop build, what we're going to be doing today is taking this thing out in this beautiful Arizona desert. It's starting to get hot and it's heating up out here, but we want to take this bike, put it on a trail, and see how it performs in its current configuration. So in case you missed last week's video, I want to briefly go over this bike. If you want to watch everything about this bike in a video, I will leave the link up here so you can go watch it, or I'll put it in the description for you. But we have the brand new PivotTrax off-road tire wrapped around the Excel wheels with the KKE hubs. Of course, we went with the Warp 9 sprocket, the Warp 9 bars, bar mount, stem lock. We have the Charge Cycle Works display that allows this screen to fit around the Warp 9 bar mount. And then obviously, just like every build we do, we did the Warp 9 drop brackets with the Warp 9 foot pegs to put you down with a better center of gravity. I go over all of that in detail in the previous video, but let's get out and ride this thing. All right, as promised, we are out here deep in the Arizona desert, and I'm looking for a trail that I've ridden a bunch of times before, and this is part of it right here. This is the Arizona single track style of riding that we usually do. Maybe this isn't the type of riding you do, and that's totally fine, but at the end of the day, this is how I can show you how this bike performs. Now, it's a perfect platform to start a build. The E-Ride 3 or 2.0, not the 3.0, is the perfect platform to start our build on, especially for somebody who is beginning. Tariffs just increased the price, but at the end of the day, this is still a fantastic deal, and you know you're dealing with a reputable company. Now, the one thing I will say is that, whoa, oh, sand. Ooh. The one thing I will say is that you are slightly underpowered once you throw bigger wheels and tires on. And that's something that you just have to make the decision of what it is that you want to do and what's important to you. If top speed is the most important thing to you, then putting your bigger wheels and tires is ultimately going to take that away, and you're going to have to compensate for that in some way. So on this bike, we have the 16-19 setup, and honestly, when you're talking about the small size E-motos, ooh, this really is the sweet spot for this bike, and mostly because it doesn't completely kill the power. You can have a good sized tire on here and not worry too much about losing all the torque and all the power. You go with an 1821 on this size of bike, and you are going to find yourself definitely losing power. And for a lot of people, we pay a lot of money for these bikes, and we want to maintain power, but we also want to make sure we can go the places that we want to go. So regardless of the bike, the one thing to me when it comes to riding these little E-motos is body position. I talk about it constantly. If you guys have been here for a while, you're probably sick of hearing about it, But to me, it is the most important thing. I think I found a new trail. There we go. Keep getting lost. It is the most important thing for me. On the most recent podcast we did, I will link that in the description. Nate and I talk about body positioning and the little things that we do right out of the gate to make these bikes better, and it changes the way they ride. I'm not a huge fan of big power E-motos, but I do feel that this one in particular is slightly underpowered now. I can't be losing too much power because I still have the 52 tooth Warp 9 sprocket. So I'm not dancing with a lot less power, and my gearing is good, and I can tell my gearing's good simply because of the way that the bike wants to stand up still, even after all of these modifications. The E-Ride 2.0 and similar power E-motos is actually for. Because if you are a full-on motocross guy or girl and you've been riding big bikes on big tracks your whole life, you're definitely going to feel that this bike is underpowered. However, if you're not that, and you're just your average casual rider, and you want to learn how to ride without the fear of injuring yourself, the 2.0 is quite literally the perfect bike. Some things to consider on this bike as compared to the 3.0 is simply the brakes. The brakes on these bikes, especially the smaller ones, generally don't have the best components, and they don't work nearly as good as you would expect them to or want them to. That is something you should probably change first, and that's why, the next modification we do on this bike will be the brakes. Obviously, Formula brakes is the way we're gonna go. We would recommend Formula to anybody. I don't care who you buy them from. Just know that when you deal with Formula, you're dealing with an awesome brake, and it's extremely reliable. And braking is just as important as how fast you can go. This next spot right here is the perfect spot to talk about suspension, because the suspension on this bike is definitely something that could use some attention. However, you also got to remember the amount of money you're spending on the bike, you're not going to get the best suspension in the world. So you got to give and you got to take. Okay, so now as I'm making my way back here, let's talk about this bike overall, because I have not ridden a 2.0 on a trail ever. My son always rides the 2.0. I usually ride a big bike or the 3.0, and this bike is generally what he's on. And what I will say is, if you're just looking to go out and have a good time, I'm actually incredibly impressed with how much fun I'm having. I've said it a lot of times, I don't really enjoy small E-motos. It's just not really my cup of tea, if you want to say that. I prefer a big bike, but this bike is easy to throw around. It's fun. And given how much you pay for it, it's a pretty good value for the money. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't need a few things. I'm just trying to figure out where the heck I'm at here. Pretty sure if I take this road, it gets me back. This thing is boatloads of fun in its little footprint. so that is it. That was a quick 7-mile little loop through the desert, and this is the first time I have ever ridden this bike or a 2.0 across this type of terrain. Now, if you guys are interested in any of the parts that you see or I have mentioned on this bike, I'll leave links in the description, discount codes, and all of that good stuff. What's next for this bike? Well, as I mentioned on the trail, one of the biggest problems with the E-Ride Pro SS 2.0 right out of the box is mineral oil brakes. I don't care what bike it is, mineral oil brakes do not belong on a bike of this size. You have brake fade really, really fast. Before you know it, 3 or 4 miles in, depending upon how you're riding and how aggressive, your brakes are mush, and that's not gonna work for somebody who really wants to push this bike. So we are gonna throw a set of formula brakes on this right out of the box, or right away. Next step in this process will be a eBMX controller. Now, for us, we are gonna get about 3 additional kilowatts, which is great. That is not the main reason we wanna use the eBMX controller. Throttle tunability is a big piece of these small E-motos because they are very fast, they are very torquey, and being able to manage your settings appropriately for the way that you like to ride is more important to us than the extra 3 kilowatts we can get out of this bike on its top peak settings. So those are some things to think about, and that's where we're gonna start next on this build. The formula brakes will be in this week. For anybody who ordered formula brakes, please bear with us. We're trying our best to get them in as quickly as possible. And the controller should be here in a week or so as well, and we'll be able to start building this bike, bring it back out here, and see just how well this thing can perform under these same exact conditions. So if you guys have any questions, concerns, leave those in the comments, and I will see you guys on the next one.